Hiya folks, JD here, and today we are looking at this. This is the Eachine Q90C. This is the updated Flying Frog. Okay, let's have a little look inside. Alright, so there we are. So this package comes with all of this. So, right then, let's push everything to one side and let's look at the quadcopter, and then we can always look at everything else in a little bit. So this is the quadcopter. You can see why it is affectionately known as the Flying Frog, as its design and its layout looks exactly like a frog. And also because of the colour too. Now what do we have here? Well, we've got four 8520 2S motors, which are cordless, but sitting on top of that we have four tri-propellers as well. Now the old model of this used to have just two standard propellers, but used to find that that caused quite a few issues, so then they updated it to include these tri-propellers as well. They are just push-in propellers, they aren't screw, so you are just going to have to double check and just make sure they are all in nice and tight before you take her out for a flight. What you also get is the quadcopter without the battery weighs 42 grams, with the battery weighs 80 grams. The battery itself is a 7.4 volt, 300 milliamp hour little battery, which when you get this quadcopter, you also get a few little velcro pads as well, so you can just quite easily velcro on the battery to the underneath of the quadcopter, thus enabling it is nice and safe and secure. We also get some elastic bands as well, should you prefer to use elastic bands to hold on the battery rather than the velcro, but myself I prefer velcro, so I'm going to opt for that. With this battery you do get 6 minutes of flight after an hour and 10-minute charge. Now with this particular quadcopter as well, you have got to remember to pull up these two antennas on the top here just to ensure that you do get the most amount of transmission distance as possible. You also do get a TV1000L camera in the front of it as well. That is the camera which is going to relay the FPV back down to the goggles, which we will look at in a couple of minutes. So that's the quadcopter. It really is quite sweet. It looks really quite nice. Its design really does seem to be really well built. Its plastic is really quite light, but this is an FPV racer. You do require these to be light and be very nimble and be very quick. So let's put this down and let's have a little look at the goggles that I alluded to a couple of minutes ago. So these are the goggles. They're Eachine VR006 and they are a standard small form factor goggles. Now inside we do have a 3-inch screen which is full colour. Now in order to use the goggles, what you're going to have to do is you are going to have to put the strap on the goggles before you go out and take them out. So what you're going to notice is you're going to have the long strap in the middle and you're going to have two small straps either side. The long strap just quite easily fits, excuse the hands folks, just fits onto and then once you've done the one side, just flip it over and you should, because it's a foam strap, there we go, just push it on and then it just sits on quite nicely. Now if you didn't see that very well, then what I'll do is I'll bring this up to the camera and show you in a bit more detail. So then what you can do is you hold, when you put the one side on, you hold the other side and then that just fits on quite nice and easily. Again, excuse the hands folks when I'm doing this, this is quite a bit of a tricky task. It does go on quite easily and then they stay on, and there we go, that is the finished product. The straps on your goggles and they stay on really quite nicely. Now there is a nice great big foam layer to the front of this as well. That will give you quite a nice cushion when it's up against your face. There are a couple of other things you need to do to the goggles, and one of those things is attach the antenna that comes with the package. So you just put it on and screw it in, and then that is what it looks like. So obviously when you do travel with it, I imagine you're going to travel with it down, and then before you race, you put up that antenna to ensure you're getting the most amount of transmission range from your quadcopter back to your goggles. That's quite nice, I like that a lot. You have a micro USB port in the side for charging. The battery takes about an hour to charge again. Now your transmission range with this, I believe, is 100 meters, and also on the side, this is how you turn on and off the device. You have the on button as well, so when you hold that for a couple of seconds, you should notice that the screen comes on the inside like that. When you first get this, you are going to have to scan and turn on you are going to have to scan using the goggles in order to pick up the quadcopter. I'll go through that in a couple of minutes as well. So that's the goggles. And now for the transmitter. So the transmitter, when you get it, it comes with the analog sticks off, so it's quite simple. Just pop those on until they lock into place. And as you can see, we don't have altitude hold. This is a racing copter, so you aren't going to have it as standard. You have got a left and right analog stick as normal. You've got your left analog stick for throttle increase up and down, as well as and then you do have your right stick there just to alter your pitch forwards, backwards, as well as your roll left and right as well. Now we have some fine-tuning buttons either side there for yaw and pitch, as well as you do have your on and off button and your status LED on the top there as well. Coming right to the top of the transmitter, you have your little antenna, and either side there, these buttons do nothing. Well, at least they feel as if they do nothing. They are rock solid. I can't even depress them at all. Coming on to the back of the transmitter, you have your transmitter battery bay, in which you will put 4 AA batteries. Now, this particular transmitter does not allow charging of any sort, so you are going to have to be prepared and use some pre-charged or shop-bought batteries in order to use this. Now, towards the bottom of the transmitter, we do have a lot of different buttons. So you do have a simulator you can play down here by plugging your quadcopter into your PC, and then you can push this button, obviously with your transmitter bound to your quadcopter, and you can take off in a virtual reality simulation where you can fly this through a nice little countryside. Over to the right hand side here, we do have 3 buttons that changes the mode from angle to horizon and to manual mode. If you don't press any of these as standard, it will just be on normal mode, and you can just fly around to your heart's content. That's exactly what I'm going to do now tomorrow when I take this out. And then you've got your bind button over here. Just by clicking this bind button once will bind this particular transmitter with your quadcopter, and then from that point onwards it should remember the binding, and then you should just be able to use your transmitter and quadcopter as standard. So that is the immediate package of quadcopter, goggles and transmitter as well. So let's have a little look, because you get a load of different packages here with it. So you get a nice little tool for holding onto the motors as you put on the spare propellers. You get 4 spare propellers. You have propeller guards, in which you have to take the propellers off, put the guards on, and then push the propellers on top of those. You get a mix bag, which has some foam for the goggles, as well as you get a screen wipes and USB charger, micro USB charger, as well as you do get 2 spare elastic bands as well, should you need those. And of course you get the battery, and you get the velcro strap, which I use to affix the battery onto the quadcopter there. So that is, again, everything that you get. So you do get a hell of a lot inside this package, as well as you do get a manual with it as well, which is a little fold-up manual that looks something like this. The manual's pretty good. It goes into quite a lot of detail, but some of the things can get quite a bit confusing when you do go through it. So what I'm going to do, just to try and help with that, I'm going to go through how to originally set up your transmitter with your quadcopter and your goggles, so that you can just get started and get going once everything's charged. Okay, so for the setup, what I had to do is, because the instruction manual is pretty good, it goes through quite a few different bits, but it doesn't tell you specifically how to bind on first flight. So what I did is I had to go through a few things and I had to figure out exactly how to do this. Let me get the battery for this guy. Now, what I had figured out is that as soon as you plug in the quadcopter comes on. There's no on button. So then, as soon as you then turn on the transmitter, it didn't bind straight away. So I activated the throttle up to full power and back down to 0, as with standard binding procedure. Nothing would happen. So then I click and held on the bind button on the transmitter, and then I noticed the red LED started to flash in a couple of different ways, and then I just moved it once up, once down, and then from that point onwards the LED flashed in a different way, and it just bound. So then what I started to do then is I tested it by first trying to see if I could calibrate the drone. So for that you have to have the throttle closed, and you have to pull the right thumbstick right the way down. Now, as you can see, if I do it again, watch the red LED this side, you'll notice it flashes in a different sequence. So that lets you know that there's a connection from the transmitter to the quadcopter. It is actually linked up, it is bound. There's no beep that lets you know when it's completed, but that is a good way, I found, to test. Just to close the throttle, bring the pitch thumbstick all the way down as well, and then I found that, there we are, it worked without any issues. And from this point, leave the throttle closed, move the pitch to the right, and then you should, hopefully, be able now to, there we are, we have a little bit of, we've unlocked the motors and we've started the motors, essentially is what I'm trying to say. So it's from this point now that when you next take it out, if we turn it all off, and then if I plug it back in, so it's all off, right, transmitter's off, quadcopter's off, and then if I plug it back in, and then turn on the transmitter, and then there's no up or down motion, it's just simple calibrate, you'll notice the LEDs flash differently, and then unlock, and then you have 6 seconds with a solid red LED where you can just increase the throttle and your motors turn. Now, if you leave the motors off, I think it's for 5 or 6 seconds, the LED light starts to flash again, exactly as it's doing here, and that lets you know the motors are locked again, where now you can't do anything, so you have to go back through the process of, well, as I always do, calibrate first, and then unlock until the LED is steady, and then you get some throttle. So that's how I bound the transmitter to the quadcopter. But then I thought, well, hang on, if that's going to be, it's not going to be as straightforward for the goggles, surely. So what I did is I left everything on, let everything bound, but obviously with the motor locked now on the quadcopter. And then I turned on the goggles by pressing and holding the on button until you get, there we are, a fuzzy screen inside there. And then I clicked and held until the on button, which is also the scan button as well. And now, as you can see, it's still not being picked up. So if I click scan, and it's going to scan through all available frequencies until we see a lovely picture of a radiator, which is, hopefully, if it does actually work, inside here. I've got a lot of Wi-Fi devices, and I've got a lot of servers in this room as well, so it might not pick up straight away. Oh, there we go. Bang, straight in. So if I bring this up, you can see there's that lovely radiator, and if I then bring this down, if I move, see the video? So now we are scanned, we are bound, we are totally ready to go. So if you turn off all of this again and turn it all on, so if I turn off the goggles, if I turn off the transmitter, if I turn off the quadcopter until everything is off, so just to show you, nothing is on, everything is off. And then if you want to test it again, then you turn on the quadcopter, plug it in, turn on the transmitter, and then click and hold the on button on the goggles, and we should, there we are, be seeing a picture. If I hold that up a little bit, there we go, straight away. No need to scan, nothing, no need to do anything. As soon as you've done it once, it'll remember the frequency and it'll just pick it up as soon as you turn everything back on. So there we go, that is the setup of the flying frog as well. Let's just knock that off. Let's turn everything off now. I don't need all this on. There we go. So that is the setup. That's exactly how to set it up and get it working. And it's with those particular defaults that I then took to the skies and tested it. Now, if you do get any issues, you can refer to this manual, but the manual, it goes into a lot of detail, but it doesn't tell you exactly how to bind. As you can see, the manual itself is absolutely massive. And one side you have the quadcopter, and the other side you have the goggles. Now, it does go into different frequencies if you want to run 3 or 4 of these at the same time, and how to find the different frequencies and how to set them. I'm not going to go through that now, but you can always read that in the manual should you want to. So there we are, folks. I hope this video has been some use to you. Thanks ever so much for watching and listening. I've been JD. You've been fantastic as always. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Hello and welcome to all the new subscribers. I hope you're enjoying the channel. So until next time, my friends, happy flying.